As I promised the people of Chicago yesterday, one of the first and fundamental things we must do is get our fiscal house in order. That's non-negotiable. We owe it to the people of Chicago, the taxpayers, and their kids, that we should not stick them with a tab because we could not put our fiscal house in order. Now, as you know, the first thing I did when I got to the office was sign 6 new executive orders as it relates to public service. That was the first thing I did. On the first day, we're going to eliminate $75 million or cut, as well as find savings and efficiencies of $75 million in the budget. And I didn't want to waste any time when it took to get there. And I asked in the address yesterday that we were going to ask some fundamental questions, and that's what we did during the transition. Do we need it? Can we afford it? Is there a better way to do it if we need it? And can we find savings in the way we perform these services to the public? Today, I'm sharing with the people of the City of Chicago my plan for the $75 million in savings. These figures are based not on assumptions of what might or might not happen. They're based on the realities that will happen. First, I'm requiring my commissioners to reduce the payroll of senior management by 10%. Last week, I required a 10% reduction in the mayor's office. Now I want to expand this to all senior management. This will save the city about $5.5 million this fiscal year. My commissioners will be able to realize these savings either by lowering the salaries or reducing the number of senior staff positions. Their choice. They can do either one or a combination. They will need to achieve these savings within the next 2 months. They will use their judgment of how best to do it, but the 10%, non-negotiable. Second, I've instructed the new Corporation Council to determine the most cost-efficient way to defend the city against lawsuits. Legal and budget experts believe that we can realize more than $3 million worth of savings in 2011, in part by better utilizing in-house attorneys and relying less on outside law firms to do the city's business. I directed my Corp Council also to call on Chicago's largest law firms to give back to the city by offering reduced rates and pro bono legal services. Third, I will merge together overlapping functions across departments. As of today, city departments house 38 separate finance, IT, procurement, and HR functions. Each department does not need a separate payroll office, or a separate IT office, or a separate procurement office. Ending these redundancies will yield another $3.5 million worth of savings. Fourth, I will change our approach to non-essential contracts, saving $17.5 million for the remainder of the year. This month, we will freeze contracts that are not essential to the functions of city government. Outside estimates confirm that we can expect savings of 10 to 15% on non-essential contracts. Fifth, we will get rid of money we spend to rent space we don't use or by doing so, we will cut back on energy consumption, janitorial services, leased space, and other real estate costs that will reach a savings of $5 million. That $5 million can be realized by shaving as little as 2 or 3% off our total lease space and energy costs. 6, we will reduce the number of vehicles maintained by the city and replace more of the aging fleet with fuel-efficient vehicles to realize an additional energy savings. 863 of the city's vehicles were driven less than 4,000 miles in 2010. That is an inefficient use of the taxpayers' dollars. We must reduce the number of individually assigned vehicles and increase the use of pool vehicles. And we must reconsider the number of vehicles registered for take-home use by city employees. Operating on a leaner model with more energy fuel-efficient cars will save the city $1.5 million in 2011. Seventh, we reform the city's Return to Work program. Each year, the city spends more than $100 million on workers' compensation costs. Our rate of workplace injuries is unacceptably high, and our costs far exceed those in the private sector. Expanding our Return to Work program will be a good first step on the road to reform. Under the current systems, workers who are injured on the job or unable to continue the position are paid to stay at home, even though in many instances they would rather be reassigned to a different, less physically demanding job. We will bring 60 employees back to work, reassigning them to less physically demanding positions. This will save at least $500,000 in 2011 and much more over the length of time. Eighth, by better coordinating the various departments that control traffic and collect revenue, the city can realize $2.3 million worth of savings. Right now, the city is paying full-time traffic control employees to do part-time work. By moving to hourly rates, we will save money and better utilize employees' time and taxpayers' dollars. Ninth, we'll improve the management of the city's grant funding. Approximately 25% of the $1.9 billion of city's entire budget comes from state and federal grants. Approximately $2 billion comes from grants from the state and the feds. My budget advisors estimate that we can achieve more than $30 million in savings by reducing the amount of unspent grant dollars, eliminating overspending by departments that oversee grant programs, and streamlining how we manage these grants. What is important to note here is that when the city mismanages or does not use the grant money, taxpayers end up footing the bill for what should have been grant dollars, not taxpayer-funded programs. 10th, better coordination of construction projects between the Department of Water Management and Chicago Department of Transportation will yield another $5 million in savings this year. Two departments repair approximately 175 miles of streets each year through aldermanic menu, arterial resurfacing, street reconstruction, water main replacement, and sewer replacement. As we begin the construction season in earnest, I am requiring that CDOT and Water Management coordinate all future construction projects to maximize the use of capital dollars. Further, I'm calling on the utilities and other private companies to coordinate their work with the city so as to minimize the disruptions to citizens and maximize better use of taxpayer money. These $75 million worth of immediate savings to the 2011 budget are only the beginning. They paved the way to a leaner budget for the 2012 fiscal year. And they also send, in my view, an unmistakable message. I'm committed to stabilizing the city's finances in order to secure Chicago's long-term economic future. For Chicago to continue to thrive as a business hub, every stakeholder will need to approach the deficit reduction with seriousness of purpose and a willingness to consider new ideas and new ways of doing business. As I said yesterday, if everyone will give a little, no one will have to give too much. And I think it's important on day one that we started with putting the city's fiscal house in order.